let's start with maybe a little bit of a flashback, right? Let's go back to the future, I suppose. The 2021-2022 campaign for Women's Super League. Who came out on top, and who was relegated, who was promoted? Exciting times, with a little bit of a shakeup here going into this next season, I believe, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, the thing is, you're talking about the last season, and I think for everyone who kind of lived through all the tournaments in July, last season was 12 years ago now.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit hard to remember sometimes. But Chelsea finished top. Last day, I feel like I'm getting this right. Last day of the season, finished a point above Arsenal, so that was fun all the way to the end for the London teams. And Birmingham City went down quite. It felt a bit of an inevitability for Birmingham, unfortunately, as things were kind of moving along as they do in this sort of professionalised world that the Birmingham couldn't quite hold on. But that gives them up for a fun season in the second tier. But in place, we have had Liverpool promoted because we do have promotion and relegation in England, which is something we love to do with our football. And I know that maybe Americans are a little more not so au fait with that, but that's one thing we absolutely love.
I
I
feel like that would have to
personally,
be like a whole separate
yeah,
episode, like the
I
flow well.
personally love the relegation and the promotion of it because it gives chances for new teams to come into the leagues and get a bit of a new look at competition and then perhaps be relegated right back down. But it still gives a bit of movement and rotation. Personally, I really like it. It jazzes up the whole league a bit. So as you mentioned, Sophie, 12 years ago, yes, this last season was about 12 years ago. It's what it feels like for sure. But off-season moves and trades, like are the teams from one season to this season looking pretty identical? What were some of the biggest off-season like player movement that happened in the Super League?
Well, Chelsea and Man City have been particularly busy. They were first and third last season. They are generally there or thereabouts. And yeah, they've both been a little bit busy. Chelsea, in particular, they brought in Kadeisha Buchanan, who I think North Americans will know, a Canadian centre back, has been at Lyon, just solid. They also brought in, oh blimey, Perisse, Ritin Kennerud, Svitkova they brought in from West Ham. So they've really tried to. Oh, and Kankovic from Rosengård. So they've really added a lot. They've added a lot in terms of attack. Even a player like Perisse, she's going to be doing bits in attack for the team as well. Man City as well, because Man City have lost a good number of players, but they brought in Australian Mary Fowler. They brought in Dana. Everyone knows they're sort of incredible young Venezuelan. Yeah. And they brought in a couple of players from Spain, Laia and Laia, as well as Kirsten Kasperlei, sort of a young Dutch player. So they've again brought in quite a few young players, but some players with a good future. So yeah, everyone's kind of just bulking up in quite a. Everyone's kind of adding the same type of players they've already got. They're not. No one's gone. Wow, well, we're going to go there. We're going to get there. Thereabouts. Everyone's kind of just adding to what they've got. But my worry for that is we're going to still see sort of, a Chelsea, Man City, Arsenal, Man United, Spurs, Reading, or yada, 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 yada. Very much this sort of standard type of table come the end of the season.
So I want to ask you, with Chelsea bringing in a lot of different players, and I mean, you mentioned a number of other teams, but with Chelsea, you said that there are a lot of the same players. So are you expecting not a lot of change in personnel in terms of their go-to players? Like, do you like all these acquisitions for Chelsea, or is it almost a bit of a deflating balloon because they've already got so many great pieces?
They've really got so many great pieces. The thing about the Chelsea is, I've actually been talking to a lot of coaches in the second tier about this because there's the impact of Chelsea are trying to win the Champions League. So Chelsea have to beat Lyon, they have to beat Barcelona and all those great other European teams, which means that they've got to be right at the top of their game. But then that impacts the entire WSL because everyone then has to be able to at least try and compete with Chelsea from top to bottom, whether you're going for the title or just trying to be safe, which then that impacts the second tier. And it's interesting. But look, Chelsea have their eyes on the big prize in UEFA. So I would expect nothing less from this team. But sometimes it just makes it harder for everyone else, though.
Yeah, I think with like I know for me, like you mentioned Kadeisha Buchanan, and I was absolutely amped, when they
Thrilled.
announced the signing. But I'm with you on that. It just sort of feels like yes, they're going to compete in Super League like they always tend to do, but it does really feel like they have their eyes on a bit of a maybe considered a bigger prize, right? A bigger slice of the pie when it comes to the European landscape there. Um, I think like I'm talking specifically about Kadeisha Buchanan, but is there any of these particular signings for any of the teams that you are like kind of excited to see in action with their new club?
There's been quite a few moves. There's been like 140 moves in WSL.
Yeah. But I'm
So
asking you
let me
about the one
just.
that excites you, the one that excites Lawson.
Oh God, the Rolodex in my brain is
Just
just
flipping and
spinning.
flipping and flipping right now. I'm also really not just not I'm showing my bias here with defenders, but I heard you went ahead and you mentioned Letitia, and I'm also excited for this player as well, and I think maybe like we're talking about like names that folks here in the States might be familiar with. So it's like yeah, Buchanan and Chelsea, but with Man United, they got head coach Mark Skinner, who had spent some time in NWSL previously. What is it about like that signing with Letitia and Skinner going and acquiring this player that the people should maybe be a little bit excited about?
She's I don't know if I'm allowed to say it. If memory, she was other teams were in for her and have been in for her for a year or two, I think, at this point. Big teams, they see this young, great defender with such a high ceiling. And I think she's exactly, I think, not just in terms of Man United being able to sign a player like Letitia and saying, you could go somewhere else, you come to us. It's, and I know from Mark Skinner's time with Orlando, there's different feelings about sort of success or not that he had there, but from what English fans have seen from Mark Skinner, especially when he was back at Birmingham, he's good at developing young players. Maybe, and I don't want to sort of say anything sort of to his detriment here that don't give him a Marta, don't give him Alex Morgan, but he's great at developing young players, getting the best out of them. So you take a player like Letitia and you give her to a coach who's got a good track record with actually getting the potential out of his players, and that just you kind of look at where her ceiling is and go, oh hello. So I think that she's going to be great for United, and they haven't just strengthened in defence. They brought in like sort of Lucia Garcia into their attack, but they've also brought in Tonkawa into the defence. So they're kind of all over the pitch and trying to just keep improving year on year, as we kind of saw Casey Stoney set them up initially, is that incremental growth.